Alright, y'all, it's been a minute. Let's talk about what I've read so far in 2026. I started this year, way back in January, by finishing off the last two books in the Empire of the Vampire trilogy. This one's super popular. I don't think you need me to tell you what it's all about, but all I can say is I can see why it's popular because it is a lot of fun. It's just non-stop action. There's a lot of gratuitous violence and just really fun twists. The characters are awesome, to be honest. I had a great time getting to know them, spending time with them, seeing their relationships develop. You have this mentor figure thing with Gabriel and the Grail, and yeah, like I don't know. I totally get I totally get all the hype. So I hope I don't sound too critical when I say it really is gratuitous. It's just like for me, it was almost too much action in the sense that like you get kind of numb to it by the end of the series, and so much of the action just feels so unnecessary. It's like Gabriel's, walking between destination, location to location, and he gets attacked by a bunch of noob vampires. And you're like, okay, obviously he's gonna wreck them, but we still have to like witness that happening, and we're not getting anything out of this. So, to me, it got a bit extreme in terms of action. People talk about the sort of angsty writing and the sort of voice that he has, which to be honest I was here for it. I understand why it's a bit Marmite, why people don't like that. I thought it was cool, I thought it was interesting. I don't mind too much. Sometimes maybe it got a bit much, sometimes it was a bit, like roll my eyes to my skull, but overall I enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed the general twists. I enjoyed the overall plot. I don't like that our characters are so overpowered. Like that's one issue I have with the series. Like basically nothing can touch Gabriel, right? Like even like the strongest vampires are there, and he just kind of beats them. Same with Celine and all that. But still, like overall there was a strong heart to the story, strong core, and also I've heard. I think the ending is very controversial, isn't it? I actually, to be honest, not to brag, I kind of predicted the ending like quite a ways back. Just not because I'm super smart, it's just because I've been kind of thinking of those kinds of frame narrative, unreliable narrator things myself. So I was like, oh, I kind of see what he's doing here, and then I didn't predict the full scale of the ending. Like if you know what I mean, you'll know what I mean, right? Like I predicted that there were some things that the unreliable narrator was really going into, but not like not the full scale of it. But regardless of that, I enjoyed the series a lot. As I said, I had some small issues with it. It's also very horny. It's not as horny as people made it sound, but it is pretty horny. So if that's the thing that you're not here for, then yeah, I don't know. Like these vampires, they don't sparkle in the sun, and they're kind of terrifying, but they're also like all of them are very hot. That's like another thing with this series is like every character you meet is like the sexiest person that's ever lived. Which sure, I mean why not, right? So that was Empire the Vampire. I enjoyed it. After that, I went into the Dragonbone chair, which is like pretty different. I loved the Dragonbone chair. It took me way back to when I was first reading Robin Hobb, getting myself lost in this, keep in this world, with just a young boy who's starting to find his place. He's very a bit of an outcast, but it's a very classic fantasy story in that sense. But it's just done really, really well. And I personally I didn't find Dragonbone Chair to be slow. I know people say it is. For me, it's like I just love those kinds of boring books myself. So I really enjoyed just getting lost in the keep with Simon and with friends, and then being there with him as shit hits the fan and all that. And there was like a lot of pretty tense action sequences of this book, especially towards the end. And by the end of it, I was like really invested in this overall plot and the story, and where everything's going. So then leading into book two, The Stone of Farewell, that book I loved as well. Maybe like a little bit less than Dragonbone Chair, just because it didn't have like the same introductory atmospheric feel. But at the same time, there's like a lot of stuff going on, some like really cool battle sequences in that book as well. I didn't find that one slow either. But I will say, going into Two Green Angel Tower, that's where I had some serious issues. And maybe it was a bit of burnout. Like I did read other books in between them, but Two Green Angel Tower, I think, was just too long. Like, quite frankly, this book is, what is it, like the longest fantasy book ever written or something? It is probably, if Two Green Angel Tower had been the same length as the Dragonbone Chair, I think it would have been a 5-star book. As it was, it's about twice the length, and it feels to me like I don't remember probably about 80 to 90% of what happened in that book. There's just a lot of trudging along, a lot of just like going in circles for no reason, some fever dream stuff, which I was not here for. And just overall, because the slog, like the entire thing felt like such a slog, by the time I got to the ending, I kind of just didn't care. Like, even though the ending was cool and all, it felt underwhelming because the only way to justify that slog was to have something like absolutely mind-blowing, which, to be honest, it kind of wasn't. So I struggled with that in that sense. At the same time, I love Tad's writing. So, his ability to create a sense of place in the world where the world feels alive because of the language he's using through the narrative, through the dialogue. He does that really, really well. I will say I'm a big fan of efficient prose. So, if you can convey an idea using a sentence of 6 words, I really like that. Whereas Tad would convey that same idea using a sentence instead of 6 words, he would use like 20 words to convey the same idea. So I would not call this prose efficient, which means I don't think it's for everyone. I still really like it because I like the way that he makes the words flow together. I like the sort of lyricism he has, where even though it, again, like has that sense of place and feel, it doesn't become overly flowery, or I'm not saying that right, but it's not too purple, if that makes sense. Overall, I would say this series, Dragonborn Chairs, first half of the series, loved it. Second half, struggled a bit, but overall, really happy with that read. Enjoyed it a lot. Still recommend it if you're into classic fantasy. Okay, so after Austin Art and all of Tad Williams, I read a very different book, and it was called This Story Might Save Your Life. I read this in audio, which I highly recommend. It's actually been one of my favorite reads of the year so far. This is a book of, it's not fantasy at all. It's very contemporary. It's about 2 podcast hosts, essentially. Kind of romantic, pretty romantic, but also not 100% romantic. Anyway, I just found this so compelling from the get-go. It's kind of hard to describe why. Maybe because it just felt very contemporary and real, and it's not the kind of stuff I usually read, but also just really well written. Like, the characters were so compelling and interesting, and their relationship and the dynamics between them, and then what actually happens in the plot once it gets going. I think the second half of the book, it kind of faltered a little bit, but I think because it's pretty short, I had enough momentum from the first half that I kept going. So if you're looking for something that's less heavy on the fantasy side, but still really like a fun, driving, interesting, compelling plot with great characters, give this one a shot, and definitely try to do it in audio, because the audio version, obviously because it's about podcast hosts, the audio version has like specific audio only things to it, and the long and short of it is like, I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but essentially there's some things that happen to these podcast hosts, and then them and their friends are trying to investigate what's going on. So okay, there was that one. And then I also read The Mask of Mirrors. So this entire trilogy was part of my reading. I enjoyed the series a fair bit. I think I had some complaints about the way the writing was done, some exposition issues, but at the same time, my only memory of it is just the character interactions, the sort of found family that we had, and then just a really interesting world. I went into this not expecting there to be as much world building and sort of fantasy magic integrated into it, and that was more so in the first book, where that ended up being a bit of a turnoff because it wasn't really what I was looking for here, and I was more interested in the character interactions and sort of their the overall plot in that sense, and how they're gonna work together to get out of this. And then there's just a bunch of magic that comes in, and I mean, I'm not gonna say it saves the day. It wasn't like Deus Ex Machina or whatever, but it was like, like I wish that things have been resolved in ways that didn't involve that magic. But then at the same time, I think books 2 and 3, I felt a lot less with that, or maybe I was more comfortable with the magic. I sort of understood it better, and those I enjoyed a lot more, because by then I was like pretty invested in this found family and in all of the different character interactions that are happening there. I think this one's also pretty fun. I'm really bad at this. I should probably start by like giving you an idea of what the story is about. Mask of Mirrors, I mean, technically it's meant to be a heist story, and it's about this thief who ends up joining like a noble family in a sort of Venetian city. And she joins this noble family pretending to be like a cousin, with the end goal of basically stealing from them. That's how it starts. But then it's really cool because there's a little bit of a twist there where she ends up kind of liking them a lot. And so now what do you do, right? Because you've sort of lied your way into this family. What are you going to do? And that's the part of the story that I was most invested in, was sort of Ren's relationship with the family that she joined. So that part was really cool. And then where the plot goes, it becomes much bigger, broader, it becomes more about the city and sort of other actors. There's a lot of political intrigue in this one, which I enjoyed a lot. The world building, like I said, it's much more world focused than I expected it to be, but there's still a strong heart of characters and characters resolving the issues that they're getting into and sort of standing up for each other and supporting each other. I love the character interactions in this. There was some romance, which I also, to be honest, enjoyed quite a bit. Like I said, my only issues with this story, other than the magic stuff I mentioned in book one, was just some of the writing felt a little bit, there's like this pattern of like character says XYZ dialogue, which feels a bit unnatural because people don't always talk like that, and then the narration explains XYZ is blah 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 blah, and for me, like, that always takes me out. This is like one of my pet peeves in writing, because it's, you put in this unnatural dialogue followed by this weird narration specifically to get information across to the reader, which is like, yeah, I mean, that's one of the big hard things to do in writing, so I understand why it's done. At the same time, it takes you out of the story, or it takes me out of the story at least. So that's kind of how a lot of the exposition was done in this book, which I didn't love, but there was enough good things in the series to sort of carry me through. So overall, really solid, enjoyed it. I think around the same time, or no, afterwards, I read Under Heaven by GGK. What is this? I don't want to count. Like maybe my 5th GGK book. Interestingly, it might be my least favorite or my second least favorite, and it's still probably the book of the year so far. So, that's saying something, right? Look, I mean, it's GGK. It's Guy Gabriel, okay? Like, what else can I say? The writing is just beautiful. It's so compelling. I was talking about how Tad Williams is really nice prose, but it's inefficient. GGK is just remarkably efficient. And his writing is so... It's interesting because, like, you can have this entire book, and I don't think there's a single sentence, I'm sure there is, of, like, actual settings description in here. But at the same time, like, it just feels so real. Like, you already know exactly the kind of setting we're talking about here. You can picture it so clearly. And this is, I think, like Tang Dynasty. Is it Tang? One of the dynasties, China. Essentially, you have a hero who, or, well, I guess he's just some dude who, after there was some big battle in, like, some far-off place, he's like, I'm gonna go there and bury the soldiers that died. And everyone else doesn't want to go there because they think it's like haunted, this place. But he goes and does it. And because he does that, he becomes very renowned and respected for doing that. So then he ends up getting a gift, which is basically just a bunch of horses. So the enemy gives him like 200 horses. And 200 horses in this world, for the part of China he's from, is a huge deal because they can't, breed these horses themselves. So now he gets caught up in all the political turmoil of like, all these factions kind of want what he has. And he's navigating this, like, how do I not get assassinated? And how do I just live and do the things that I want to do? What do I want to do? What kind of impact do I want to make? Whose side am I on in this like brewing conflict? So he gets, in typical GGK fashion, he's just like a relatively normal person who gets just yanked into like the political intrigues of the people at the top. And so he ends up being a super compelling character. All of the characters, super compelling. Dialogue, prose, writing, it's just so atmospheric. You get lost in GGK's worlds like nothing else. So I loved Under Heaven. Why does it end up being my lowest ranked GGK book? I couldn't even answer that. I just love his other books a bit more, I think. And like there's no like discernible reason for me to give you for that. Maybe if I really thought about it, maybe some of the way things were resolved in this book kind of felt not as satisfying, I guess, as other books. I could be part of it, I'm not sure. But it doesn't really matter. Like, it's still one of the best books I've read, and so far a contender for Book of the Year. Yep, so that's more or less everything I read. And then I read a couple of indies. So, The Winds of War by Moshe Winter. This one, I think it's so good, guys. Like, Moshe, he is a guy, I said this before, he is a guy who loves his fantasy epic. Like, this is a book with multiple POVs. You know, we're talking about a fantasy world which has dragons, and it has leviathans, and it has all sorts of different things. And we are kind of following this group of, well, we're following multiple POVs, but we're following this group of outcasts who tried and set up their own little village after, you know, feeling a lot of discrimination against them and a lot of hardship. And I think he goes into this in his prequel novella, which is out now as well, so I'll have to read that. Anyway, these guys, the Ravi, who have ashen hair, which he mentions many times, and they're kind of connected to something bigger, we find out. But anyway, those guys are off doing their thing, and then they get dragged into a much bigger conflict. And we essentially follow them and try to, like, as they try to find peace and a place and just a way to survive in what becomes a really epic scale conflict. And then there's also at the same time other POVs, which is more like an academic setting. There's like a university there and some research, and through that, like, we're getting more of your typical academic setting world vibes. Yet at the same time, we're learning a lot more about the world. This is book one, and I think what feels to me like it's going to be a big series. I read somewhere someone was saying that Moshe is kind of continuing the tradition of George Martin, which is great. I told him specifically, I was like, you better finish the series if you're going to do that. But I'm confident he will, because he's a prolific writer. His writing is beautiful. It's just really well done. I think the series needs some more love, and I hope it gets it, because he deserves it. So really enjoyed The Winds of War by Moshe. And I finished Tori Tekken's Cold Silver recently as well, and I love this book a lot. Like, it really hit me. I just feel like she just, I haven't read actually many westerns, to be honest, but this one just felt so atmospheric, in a way where it captured that vibe of sort of outlaws, you know, these far out villages. The law is kind of negotiable. No one really knows what it is. No one really cares about it. And you step on someone's foot the wrong way, you might get shot, etc. Captures that vibe perfectly, through a character who has this very compelling voice. You just get this sense of melancholy of Hunter, and this sort of sense of just deep hurt, trauma. Yet at the same time, you know, like, and also a sense of justice, sense of wanting to do the right things. And she gets caught up in some interesting stuff. She ends up meeting some interesting people, and I just really enjoyed, you know, Tori's books are not, I would not say they're like super, they don't have like a scripted plot, right? She's very good at writing in this way, where you kind of discover the plot as you go. You're following this character, you're sort of seeing what's happening to her as she understands what's happening to her. There's no like mission from beginning to end. There's no like take the ring to Mordor kind of thing. But at the same time, like, I love books like that, because it feels less scripted to me. So it just felt like, okay, I'm chilling with Hunter and her zombie called Rip, because there's necromancy in this. I should really explain what these books are about before I just ramble off, eh? But anyway, you can maybe read the blurb or something. So we're just chilling together and going off on a bit of an adventure, and, you know, bad things are happening, and you're like, well, that's not ideal. And, you know, meeting new people, and you're like, oh, they seem cool, or they don't seem cool. And yeah, we're just doing that. And that is what it is. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. Give it I think a proper 5 stars. Like, it worked really well for me. So if you haven't checked out, it's super short as well, so easy read. Like, Tori's writing is wonderful. It's just really very readable, that's exactly what you want, right? So definitely check out Cold Silver. God, why am I blanking on the full name? Cold Silver for Souls? Is that what it is? I will realize that name right after I finish recording this. Anyway, sorry, Tori. I'm just really terrible right now. I have a dad brain, so that's where I'm at. Guys, look, I hope you don't mind me rambling. I appreciate if you made it this far, honestly. I'm so out of practice doing this, like talking to camera stuff. Like I said, I have had dad brain because we had a newborn, and you know, anyway, so I've been meaning to make more videos. I will try to do that. Appreciate you checking out this one. You guys have a great day, happy reading, and have fun.